This is a woolly mammoth. Many may think the woolly mammoth died out because its hairy coat made it too hot for post-ice age temperatures, but if you believe this, you have been lied to. The real reason they went extinct has a lot to do with evolution. 100,000 years ago, the Earth entered a period called the Ice Age, in which most of the planet was covered in, you guessed it, ice. The planet continued to revolve through the same 4 seasons, it was just much colder. Despite the ice, there were still plenty of herbivores to munch away on those tough, cold-resistant prairie grasses, and plenty of carnivores to munch away on those herbivores. Even in a water-covered era of our Earth's history, it still supported life, adaptation, and growth. Speaking of life, adaptation, and growth, this is Bob. He's a prehistoric tusked Chewbacca. Oh, no, sorry. He's a woolly mammoth, the gentle giant of the Ice Age. He's the top forager, respected by all other animals, and, like today's elephant, broadly left alone to do his own thing. In other words, he led an introvert's fantasy life. As the Ice Age continued, Bob and his mammoth friends wandered the icy landscapes of the northern hemisphere. Thanks to their thick fur and massive tusks, they survived the cold better than most. But then, as the glaciers melted, everything started to change. Despite what you've been told, climate change isn't only a modern problem. It's been happening for all of time, forcing life to adapt and change, if not as quickly as it is right now. At the end of the Ice Age, the Earth began to warm. This wasn't a simple seasonal change. Compared with what life had been like in the Ice Age, it was like the planet decided to ditch winter entirely. Like a worldwide sauna, the climate began to warm up. Glaciers melted, and the tundra morphed into forests and swamps. The cold, open plains that mammoths loved became dense forests and wetlands, unsuitable for the massive creatures. As the environment transformed, so too did the life it supported. Now I know what you're thinking. Mammoths lounging under palm trees, sipping on coconut water. Adorable, right? Sure, but hammocks hadn't been invented, and that's the only reason your mental image is statistically improbable to have actually happened. No, the real reason wasn't a lack of amenities, but the loss of the cold, wide-open habitats Bob and his mates needed. The warmer climate wasn't an issue. Bob could handle the heat, but the melting ice flooded and destroyed his habitat and food sources, and that was a real headache. This fragmented mammoth populations, turning their lush natural environment into isolated, disconnected regions. Imagine you're Bob, grazing away on a Canadian plain, when suddenly you hear about your friend over the hill who's drowned in a local flood, and before you know it, you're surrounded by dense forests. You can't eat this stuff. As if not having any food wasn't trouble enough in a hot world, humans entered the scene. Those weird little 2-legged monsters were no longer rock-throwing, grunting imbeciles, but were now tactically proficient hunters thriving in the changes the rising temperatures had brought with it. Bob was not much of a threat to human civilization. He spent most of his time munching on long grass and probably behaved much like modern-day elephants. Leave him alone and he'd leave you alone. Still, a mammoth was to an early human what an all-you-can-eat wing fest is to a modern redneck. Just one kill presented an entire village with food for a week. Humans' greedy eyes saw them and twinkled, and the hunting began. Soon, worldwide mammoth numbers began to dwindle significantly. Did the early humans realize their impact on this magnificent creature? Probably, but did they stop? Not at all. In fact, humans became exceptionally good at hunting Bob and his mammoth friends. Around the world, they evolved different techniques, employing trapping skills, utilizing domesticated dogs, and taking supremely sharp weapons along with them. Poor old Bob didn't have interposable thumbs, so he didn't stand a chance against organized humans hunting parties armed with these advanced tools. So, can things get any worse for Bob? Of course they can. Not only were humans hunting them into oblivion, but these actions meant the remaining mammoth populations began to suffer from genetic bottlenecks. With all their distant relatives dying, the survivors were forced to inbreed. As if Bob isn't already struggling enough in a rapidly warming world, he now has to blush through the incredibly awkward situation of mating with his cousin. The shrinking gene pool, accompanied by the ever-present impact of hunting, meant mammoths became weaker and less adaptable. Diseases spread more easily among these already struggling populations, driving them ever faster towards extinction. The last known woolly mammoth population survived on Wrangel Island in Siberia until as recently as about 4,000 years ago, when they too faded into the mist of time. Today, some scientists are working on combining mammoth DNA with that of African elephants to bring the species back from the dead. Despite the absence of realistic habitats and the ethical accountability dilemmas such projects bring up, one thing is sure, who wouldn't want a selfie with a woolly mammoth? That's us humans for you. Let's just hope we don't mess it up again, because let's be honest, we probably will. Anyways, bye.